Hey everybody, welcome back to The Recycled Mom. Today's video is a collaboration with the Ingrid Chronicles, and she has gathered a bunch of mom channels here on YouTube to collaborate together, go through the book of Proverbs for the month of July. And if you look at the playlist below, you will see the different mom channels who have taken on a different chapter for each day of the month. And today it's my turn. I have chapter 7 and we're going to go through that. I would encourage you, if you would like to follow along, to grab your copy of God's Word and go to Proverbs chapter 7. Maybe even read it before you continue on with the rest of this video. Or you can read it when you're done with the video and have a whole different insight to everything. So that is my goal today, is to offer you the insight into chapter 7 from a mom's point of view. Solomon is using the problem of sexual immorality to, or as a metaphor really, to discuss the problem of, turning from wisdom and going after folly. And the consequences of following, turning away from wisdom and going after folly are deadly, as you will see as we go along. And so just because this is Solomon's teaching and this is coming from a man's perspective, this doesn't mean that it can't apply to us. And then when it's talking about adultery, we are usually talking about sexual immorality, physical adultery, outside of the bonds of marriage. And so we usually, adultery is usually associated with breaking marital bonds. And I would like to offer a different perspective, if you will allow me to do that, I would like for us to look at this chapter, instead of physical adultery, a spiritual adultery. And a spiritual adultery would be you turning away from your faith or your beliefs, really turning away from God, the one that you love, your first love. And remember, adultery is a heart issue. Your heart has to turn first before you wander into this next thing or to do this thing over here. Your heart is turning and meditating on that, and it will cause you to wander away. And that is what we're talking about here, leaving your first love. If you will notice in Revelation 2, verses 2 through 5, the Lord Jesus is telling John to write things, and he is saying to, addressing a church in Ephesus, he is saying, I have something against you. Even though I know you've done all of these wonderful works, you have, done things in my name, and you have, cast down, false teachers and these kinds of things. You've done a lot of great things, but your heart isn't in it. You have left your first love, and I have something against you. And he tells them to repent and turn back. Remember where you've fallen from. Turn back and do what you know to do that is right. When we turn away from Jesus, which is wisdom, and we turn to these other things, we find a lot of calamity and chaos and that folly, and we're having like a poverty, a spiritual poverty, and an emotional poverty and a physical poverty. These are the consequences of adultery, both physical and spiritual. And so let's go through here and look at this from the perspective of a woman. And this is how we're going to do this. I want you to put yourself, as a woman, I want you to put yourself in the place of the young man in this chapter who is void of understanding. That is going to be you. I'm not saying that you're dumb. And then I want you to replace the crafty harlot in the story with the world, or the things that would distract you from focusing on the Lord. Things that might be temptations, they might be pleasures, things that might not be bad in and of themselves, but they are taking your love and taking more of your time away. So the world and all it has to offer is very powerful. Just like this harlot in this story, she was very powerful to lure him away. And it's not always obvious that we're being lured away from our first love. It's not, because just like an affair would happen. It always starts with small little things. It might small little, having coffee together, at the same time in the break room, or you always happen to find yourself in certain situations, or just a little, extra conversations here. It starts very small and very innocent, and before you know it, you find yourself in the wrong place. We can tend to think as women who are studious in the Bible, who are involved in church a lot, we've grown up in a Christian home and a Christian family, we tend to think that we've got this. I'm strong enough. Oh, this is just this little harmless thing. And it becomes other things like, well, it's only one hit, or it's only one look, it's only one chip. Just can't eat one, right? Look, so you can see, and if we look into verses 6 through 9 of the chapter, you can see the progression of sin. You can see how easily it is that we can be lured away or distracted from our focus. In verse 7, it tells that, the young man here, he's young. It doesn't necessarily mean he's young like 16 or 17. It could be, maybe young in his faith. We could be young in our faith. Maybe we haven't grown a lot. We could be a new believer. We could be someone who's just immature in their faith. And that would cause us to not have understanding or the wisdom or discernment that a more mature Christian would have. And so we see here as he's going along, he's passing along the street near her corner. This is in verse 8. And he took the path to her house. And we can see that he's in the wrong place. We're in the wrong place, ladies. What should we be doing that we're not? And we find ourselves distracted. And here's a young man distracted. When our minds are distracted, we wonder. Or I just say that we suffer from ADD, which is adult distraction disorder. Squirrel, puppies. We are distracted people. There are so many things out there to distract us, to lure us away, to take our minds off of what we should be doing. And so in verse 9, we see that the progression is in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. It starts out fine. Yeah, I'm fine. No big deal. And then, it starts and the sun goes down and then it's the black of night. And that is where the woman met him in verse 10. And she met him with the attire of a harlot and a crafty heart. And she knew what she was doing. And that's the world with us, ladies. The world and the magazines, the fancy homes that we see, like all of these perfection things that we see out there, the Instagram worthy things, it's there. It lures us away and be like, oh my goodness, that I would love to have a house like that. Oh my gosh, this gets me every year when it gets to be like beginning of the school year for us homeschool moms. I see all of these moms who are they're so creative and they have all these wonderful decorated corners in their house for their kids, and they have reading areas and they have these things and all these activities, and they're doing all these, they're going outside and playing with their kids, and and I'm like, well, I don't have that, and I don't have a dedicated schoolroom, and I don't have all these bright colors, and I am not a crafty person, and I do not have enthusiasm to be able to get up every day and teach my kids with such enthusiasm. I digress. So we're going to get back. Someone told me one time that you can't just fall into the deep end of the lake. You first have to have waded out into it. You first start, you dip your toes in the water, you have to wade out, and then there's a drop off. And you got in there and you got in too far, boom, here you are. Here is the woman met him in verse 10, and here we are facing our issues. We didn't intend to go this far. We didn't think the drop off was right there in the water, and now we are deep in it. And it's very easy to just give in at this point. Well, I'm already here. I might as well just, right? And here we are. This proves that we are the simple one that it says in the verse. We are the young one who's immature in their faith, and we are void of understanding. We are the fool. The next verses and through the rest of the through verses 23 paints the description or graphic picture really of the time that they had together. So in verse 21, we can see that says, with her enticing speech, she caused him to yield. With her flattering lips, she seduced him. And that's what I was saying earlier. These things that we just kind of get lured into, these Instagram worthy things. It could be material things for some people, it's an interest, it's a hobby. These things can lure us away. We spend more time with them than we do with the Lord or with our families. And it's a powerful draw because It's just amazing, right? You just get on and you start looking. Maybe you're shopping on Amazon for something specific, and the next thing you know, you maybe have 5 or 6 things in your cart, and you've spent an hour going through, oh wow, look at that, oh look at that, because things get suggested to you. It's appealing to us, right? So it's easy for us to just yield into those temptations of maybe buying too much or looking at too much or eating too much. And in verse 23, here's his demise at the end. As a bird hastens to the snare, he did not know it would cost his life. The consequences here are dreadful. And that is where what started off as a distraction will take us. Oh no, I got this. I'm good. I'm strong enough. We're not. Let's not deceive ourselves, ladies. We will suffer a spiritual death when we stray out of the path of wisdom. That's what these verses are showing us. Verses 25 and 26 is that warning. Do not let your heart turn aside. Don't let your heart turn aside. Because when you do, and it says, do not stray into her paths. Don't turn your heart aside. Don't stray, because all who were slain by her were strong men. Okay? And that's what we think. I'm strong enough for this. I got this. I can be here and not be bothered, And this is a warning. Clearly, we're not. And in Revelation, Jesus is telling the church, I have something against you. You left your first love. You're not as strong as you think you are. You do all these good things. You're not as strong as you think you are. We need to take heed to that. Let's not put ourselves willingly into the areas of temptation, right? Like this young man did. If it's a temptation for you to be on Facebook, for instance, and you're on Facebook and you know that, you're aware that you just keep scrolling and you're like, oh, I spent another, hour just wasting time. If you know that that's an issue for you, then put your phone away, close your computer, do something else, stop the notifications. I get notifications on my my Apple Watch. I've had to put that on Do Not Disturb. I've had to take off notifications on my laptop so it won't ding at me all the time when I'm trying to teach the kids something from, using my computer. I've taken all of the apps, all the social media apps off my phone, and I have not missed them because I was getting constant reminders. So let's be active to trying to, put some of these things aside so that we know that we won't be distracted too much. Let's watch our minds and not be obsessed with the thoughts and cares of this world. Not be obsessed with them. It's one thing to be, caring about things that are going on. Oh, good Lord, there's a lot going on right now. It's one thing to be concerned about that, but let's not be obsessed with it, because we can get carried away with that. We need to always be turning our eyes on Jesus. As soon as you remember that, oh my gosh, I've been on here for such a long time. Oh, let's turn back to Jesus. Let's turn back to Jesus. And I just remembered this right now. We used to have prayer at noon in our home, and we don't do that anymore. And I know it's probably because the kids are older and everybody has such separate schedules, but we're all here together. So I think we need to do that. It's refocusing ourselves. You're going throughout the day, you're refocusing yourself. You're going and doing all of these things, but keep dialing it in so that we stay focused and doing what we need to be doing, meditating on him and the things that are pure and true and right and good. So every one of us is capable of spiritual adultery when we allow discontentment into our hearts. And it's very easy because we look out our windows, into the world. It says in verse 6, for at the window of my house, I looked through my lattice. We're looking out our windows into the world, and that's social media. We're looking through Facebook and Instagram, or maybe Pinterest or whatever else you're on, and we're looking through the windows and we're seeing the lives of other people, and it's very easy to be a little envious, maybe, or we may be looking out into in church or other families, and that's when envy can sneak in. Not that we can't ever look into the lives of our friends or other people, and look to see how people do other things, how they run their homeschools or run their homes, or how they organize this, or how do they decorate that. That is completely fine. But when we do it constantly on a consistent basis from the first time we wake up till the time that we go to bed, It sets in our heart day in and day out. We're putting it in there, and it's setting on our heart. And the distractions start to come, and distractions come, and they just lure us away. And ladies, the warning is there. Do not let your heart turn aside. Do not stray. And ladies, that's my prayer for you. Anyone that's watching this is my prayer for you. But as a mom, we have so much right here in front of us. Our biggest ministry that we have is sitting right at our kitchen table. And we need to, there's our focus. There's our focus. So how do we keep from going there? And I'll leave this with you. I'll end with this, is verses 4 and 5. When you will say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your nearest kin, that they may keep you from the immoral woman, the world, from the seductress who flatters with her words. That is how you're going to do it. When you choose wisdom to be your most intimate friend, a sister, your nearest kin, it'll keep you from wandering and going into folly and immorality and disrupting your relationship with the Lord. Let's not do that. So until next time, peace, love, healing, y'all.